Welcome to RX for Justice, nursing's legal dose, your essential companion as we journey through the dynamic world of nursing. Join us as we explore the multifaceted aspects of our profession, from navigating the intricacies of business ownership to mastering crisis management and prioritizing self-care. With expert insights and unwavering support, we're here to empower every nurse to thrive in their career and beyond. Let's embark on this transformative journey together. Hello, nurse friend. Janice Dolnick here. So excited to jump on this podcast with you. It's our new segment titled Crisis Corner. And in my corner, I have my friend, Miss Callie Castro. Say hello, Callie.
Hello, everyone. Excited to be here.
So we've decided that one of the best first podcasts for this segment would be about one of the cases that we did, and it is a nurse that was accused of stealing narcotics from the Pyxis. And one, it was such an intriguing case. But really, and Callie, tell me if I'm on the right path here, really what I want to discuss is how quickly nurses ganged up on this person. How without any facts about the case, the immediate, at that moment when this person was accused of stealing narcotics, everybody in that unit immediately turned on this nurse.
Yeah, and I think we hear about this so much more frequently, it seems. And it's a field where, we've been rated the number one trusted profession year after year. And then when it comes to our own, we are so quick to turn on each other.
It's wild to think, when we sit back and we do these cases, and a lot of them make it to the news. They become quite newsworthy, especially when you have a nurse accused of doing something or, where a patient dies. And we'll go through and we'll read comments, on these news articles or in forums, and the attitude that nurses have towards someone who hasn't yet been convicted of a crime. It's almost mind-blowing to see how much of really like a witch hunt it becomes, where they're ready to burn this nurse at the stake without knowing both sides of the story.
Yes. It's unfortunate too, because, there are colleagues, we work with them, you have established these relationships, and then one report or one person saying something or one, anything that comes up, everyone just so quickly turns against them. There's no support. There's no trying to find out what actually happened. It's just, there's a potential that this happened and they must have done it.
Yeah, and everybody just jumps on board. Mm-hmm. And I think for us in the field of legal forensic nursing and, within the program, we teach our nurses that it's really important to understand both sides of a story before you ever jumping to any conclusion.
Yes, I think that's so important. There's always, that saying of there's two sides to every story and the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important, especially as a legal forensic nurse, to have that larger lens that you look through and you're able to see both sides of things, and that you don't come in with this preconceived judgment or thought that you have made up based off of part of the story or part of the facts. You really need to look at everything. I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I tell everyone, some of the best ways to learn how to see two sides of a story is to watch like crime TV, like watch some of those crime TV shows where it's, the DA, they're, it's a plaintiff case or the DA is speaking, and most everybody assumes that if a person was convicted of a crime, well, then they must have done it. It's like a natural human, I don't know, it's like a natural human reaction to something, especially if somebody was, murdered or hurt very bad. It's like, well, I mean, how else could it have happened? They obviously had to have done it, but we never know why. And unless we take the time to figure out, and as legal forensic nurses, we have that opportunity where we can go through, that other person's records and find out, was there something here that made this person do what they did? But when we're talking about a nurse in a hospital who has shown up to work, every shift, never missed a shift for 20 plus years in the ICU, giving their time and their love and commitment. And the moment someone thinks they saw something and they tell someone else and it spreads like wildfire, immediately that person becomes like the enemy. And everyone is going after them.
It's so true. They become the target. One person says something. And I mean, in this case that we worked on, it was a report. One person thought they saw something, things were looked into, and then it became this witch hunt, really. Like you were saying, that everybody turned against this nurse. The authorities that were involved, it kind of became this big like spectacle over them.
Yeah, it was like we have nothing better to do, so we're gonna this is what we're gonna do. We're all just gonna get together and do this. And it's not just this case. I think that's the saddest part is, somebody just announced, oh, nurses, based on the Gallup poll of 2024, nurses just got the most trusted, career, most trusted person, for all these years and years and years, blah, blah, blah. But then you see these nurses and they're the first to turn on each other.
Yeah, I think it's something that needs to change in the profession. I don't know how you go about changing that, but it seems more and more these days. I was talking to a nurse friend the other day, and something in a hospital local to me, where a nurse was being investigated for something and accused for something, and all of a sudden all of the nurses on the unit and in the hospital wouldn't talk to them any longer. It was like they had committed some awful crime. There was the outcome had not been determined, but they were now the enemy, and no one would talk to them. No one would give them any information. It was just, they were blacklisted and everyone was against them. And it's happening everywhere, all over the country, all different units, all different facilities.
It's disgusting. It makes me so disgusted because I know that at any moment, it could be any one of us, right? It could be you. It could not you as in Callie, but you as in the listener. It could easily be you. Someone could turn their head and think they saw you swallow, the patient's pill, and suddenly, your entire life, everything you've worked for is gone. And I don't think people quite understand the long-term like effects that this has, not just on, the person, the inability to get a job, because if this is filed in court, it's on their name forever, and they're always going to have to be able to explain their way out of it, even if they, are found innocent. Their name blasted all over the internet, right?
Yeah, I think people don't think of the repercussions. And it's one of those things too, where even if they are, proven innocent, their job at that facility or hospital, wherever they were working, it's not something they're going to go back to.
Right.
Even if they were invited back.
Right.
It's not a comfortable situation or environment.
How do you go back to how do you go back to something like that, where you were innocent, you maintained your innocence, and you're like, all these people, my work sisters, my work brothers, whoever that I trusted for years, how do you go back to something like that? You can't. So I think for me, the most important thing when with this podcast and with our program is that if the one thing I want nurses to be able to take away is that always, 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 always ensure that you are getting both sides of the story before you come to a conclusion, or that you or you make a judgment about a person, because one thing, one tiny little thing, can ruin someone's life. And we see this all the time in our criminal defense work that we do, is that so many people have been wrongfully accused, put into jail, and we're able to help their lawyers get them out 10 years later, but 10 years of their life have gone by and been ruined by false accusations. And we're doing this to ourselves. We're doing this to each other, to our own kind, to our people, without ever knowing the full story. And it is disgusting. I don't know how we fix it or stop it, but it really truly is my hope that if something ever comes across your desk or comes across your clipboard at work, that you take the time to go, I wonder, what of this is true? And I wonder what the full story is. I really need to understand the full story before I make that judgment. And you guys, no matter what, it's innocent until proven guilty, but we are stoning people before they ever even have the chance to speak their side of the story. And it's just not okay. Not in a profession that continues to be, that continues to earn the most trustworthy, empathetic, compassionate, group of people. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
It's so true. I think we need to do better as a profession. And I think everybody needs to be aware of these types of things going on and how we are hurting our own. And yeah, I don't know how we change it and how we fix it, but I think the first step is acknowledging that this is going on and that we are doing this to our own.
Yeah, 100%. And it's the crazy part is you'll even see some of the law enforcement. They're all kind of, the nurses and the cops, they're all kind of collaborating together on these stories. And it's wild, Kelly. Like, it's just, you sit back and you watch it and it's like you're watching something on TV. You're watching these people literally come up with things out of thin air and all collaborating. I mean, like, yeah, right? And then suddenly that becomes the story. And so this is happening. You're right. This is absolutely happening. And nurses need to be aware that this is happening. If you ever find yourself in a situation like this where you are being, the one that's accused of a crime, of doing something you shouldn't have done, what are some tips, Kelly, that you would give someone that found themselves in a situation where, like, here, I'm gonna be the nurse. Hey, Callie, my manager just pulled me into the office. He said that, Joe Schmo over here said he saw me put a narcotic in my pocket, out of the Pyxis. It's not something I did. I would never steal. I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't know what he thought. I had a cap and I put the cap in my pocket because I was in a hurry. What steps do I need to take to protect myself, Callie?
Well, I think, the first thing is definitely get a lawyer that can advise you as to what you should and should not say or do. It's also really important that you have kind of a timeline for yourself of what happened, where you were, what you were doing.
Write it down.
When these accusations were being made, because when you're thrown into something like this, it can become overwhelming. You're stressed, you're anxious, you're like, oh my gosh, this is my livelihood. How am I going to take care of my family if I don't have my nursing license or a job? So it's really important to write it down. Write down exactly where you were that day, exactly what you were doing at that time, so that you have that there to look back on and refer to.
What about, you said lawyer, Callie. What about my hospital? I mean, my hospital, they have lawyers, and that's what I was told in nursing school, right? That the hospital lawyers would protect me. Isn't that the lawyer I should be consulting with?
So it is what we think. It's what we're taught in nursing school. It's what the hospital tells us. A lot of nurses are told you don't need additional malpractice insurance because the hospital covers you. But what we have seen over and over and hear over and over is that the hospital lawyers are there to protect the hospital. They are not there to protect you. If it comes down to you or the hospital, they're protecting the hospital. And you have to keep that in mind. You're one small person. The hospital is a large system. So you're going to want to get your own independent lawyer that can help you and advise you on exactly the steps that you should take.
What about, should I make a statement when the lawyer, my manager, everybody pulls me into their office? What do I do about that?
Absolutely not, because that can be used against you. Anything that you say is something that they are using to help their case in whatever is going on. So if a patient died and you're being looked into, any statement you make is going to be turned into to fit their narrative, really. Right. And we've seen it happen. We've seen it happen in national cases, seen it happen in hospitals around the area. And so you always want to, you have to protect yourself, and you should never make a statement until you have consulted with a lawyer that has your best interest in mind.
It's crazy, because I think what happens is, I think that nurses, the minute not we, but I'll say we as in the collective, but the minute somebody accuses us of something, and we're good-hearted people, like, we don't have the intention of hurting someone. So our initial gut instinct reaction when, say the lawyer and the manager want to sit down and have a conversation with us is we want to defend ourselves, right? Like, we immediately want to give our statement because we want them to know, I would never do anything to hurt anyone. And so that gut knee-jerk reaction tends to be what ends up hanging some of these nurses, because you're right. They will use their statements against them and to fit their own narrative. And so it's, and like you said, in nursing school, right, we're taught, oh, you don't need additional insurance. That's what the hospital is for. Callie, I finished nursing school. I was a CNA and then an LVN, graduated LVN in 2002, and then went back for my RN and graduated in 2007. And between those years, the early 2000s, there was a time, and you guys can shoot us an email if you've seen this change as well. But we talk about this a lot. Back in the day, even the early 2000s, your manager had your back. Like, had your back. Like, if a patient's family said something crazy about you, the manager didn't even bother, because they knew, like, oh no, that's not true, right? Like, your managers had your back. Your hospital, I think legitimately they had your back, and times have really changed where I'm not sure where that flipped. I don't know at what point in the nursing, in this nursing history from 2000 to now, when did that change?
Yeah, no, you're right. And I don't know when that exact time was either, but there was definitely a period where you could go to your manager if there was an issue. Oh, yeah. If there was a patient that was doing something or saying something, the manager would come in and back you and support you. And it's just not like that anymore. We hear stories all the time. We see it all the time, where nurses, they're not backed. They're automatically wrong.
It's nuts. Yeah. It's just nuts to watch it unfold. And I think bringing the awareness to our listeners is so important, because there's a lot of this happening in a lot of different facilities. Maybe it's something you've experienced yourself. Perhaps it's something you've seen another coworker go through. either way, we'd love to hear your story. You can send us an email, janice@legalforensicnurse.com. I'd love to hear your story. If you're willing to share maybe something you went through or something you experienced another colleague go through. But I think we need to bring it to the table. I think people need to understand that this is going on, and nurses, before you judge, before you put that person up on that, up there to hang them in front of town square, like, you've got to really do your research and make your own decision and choice, right? Like, don't be swayed or persuaded by other people. I think that's really important. We see, we'll often look at video, like surveillance video for certain crimes that have happened. And the wild thing about video, and so many people think, oh, look at this video. It's evidence that this happened. But from one angle, right, it could be one story. And then from the angle, from the backside, it's a totally different story. A video is never solid proof of something, that happens, unless you've got multiple angles. You can really look and see, hey, did this really happen? We have one where this guy was, he was wearing a white sheet and pretending he was a ghost, and he was accused of stabbing someone. And from the back of him, where the first surveillance camera was, it was apparent that he stabbed this person that was getting out of their car. It just, you could, the way his arm, everything. Well, when you see the video from the other side, which, by the way, we didn't get for a while, like, that video was more difficult to get because it was on a different building, wasn't on this building, blah, blah. We finally get that video, and it's clear as day this guy did not stab the guy in the car. The guy in the car actually stabbed him first. But we're making these concrete decisions based on very little evidence, right, when this stuff first happens, and we're hurting our own. And it's just, it just makes me feel so sick inside that this is happening to nurses. And so if anything you take from this episode today, it really is the awareness of what is going on, and the knowledge, one, to know what to do if you find yourself in this situation. Get yourself a lawyer up as fast as you can. Remember, we're not lawyers. We cannot give legal advice. So get yourself a lawyer. And third is, don't jump to conclusions. Don't be so quick to go against our own without understanding fully everything that's going on. Do you have anything else to add, Callie?
No, I think that is so important, is you have to have all of the facts and know the full story before you make any judgments.
Yeah, especially in a time like that, like when that nurse needs, those people, when they're going through something like that, they need people. They need people. They need support.
They don't need to be ostracized to an island where no one will talk to them and everybody is against them. And I think there's some name for this phenomenon, but where one person's like, yeah, they did it. And then everybody else standing there who may not even know the story or the person is
right.
Like, yeah, they did it. And next thing you know, there's thousands of people saying, yeah, they did it. But 999 of them don't even know the story, who the person is, what happened, but somebody said they did it and they all jumped on that. And
yeah. It's like gossip. It's like a game of telephone. Exactly. Like, yeah, I'm in it. Wait, what are we doing? Yeah, charge ahead. Like, we really have no idea what we're doing, but it looks like fun. I'm in.
Yes, yes. But we have to remember this is people's livelihood. Right. This is their career, how they support themselves and their family. And it's one of those things where you can't make assumptions and you can't be wrong about these things. Like, it's something that's really serious. And so I think definitely you need to know the facts. You need to know the whole story before you make judgments and have opinions.
And be the person that's like, you know what, I'm going to investigate this. Something seems a little fishy here, right? I'm going to go in and start looking into this. Like, don't be that person that just goes, yep, let's be it. Be the person that, thinks outside of the box and goes, how can I see this case from all these different angles and figure out the true story? Because that's what we do in our career, right? As legal forensic nurses, we're putting together a puzzle. And if that's, if you're intrigued by that type of work, if that is like where your brain is at, shoot us an email. But if that kind of stuff intrigues you, don't get on the bandwagon and join everybody else. Sit down and go, how can we figure out what really happened here? And is this guy really, really wrong, or is he innocent, or is she innocent?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's huge. Don't jump on the bandwagon. It's like we tell our kids, be a leader, not a follower. So go out there, investigate, figure out what really happened.
Mm-hmm. And don't be so quick to turn your back on people. We're adults, right? Don't be so quick to turn your back on people. We got to be better. We definitely got to be better. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. If you need anything, Janice at legalforensicnurse.com. We're super excited to be here again, and we hope that you found some value in this episode. Thank you for joining today's episode inside of Crisis Corner, part of RX for Justice's podcast. We hope that you found value in today's episode. If you have any questions or have a desire to learn more about the field of legal forensic nurse consulting, you may send an email to info@legalforensicnurse.com. We'll see you on the next episode.